thank you for joining us. So the title of the panel is AI's Next Leap Forward. As AI has gone from finishing sentences to answering questions and generating drug candidates and even making decisions, we enter a strange and unusual stage, right, in a technological cycle. So the question is, how do we move responsibly from assistance, right, to autonomy? How do we actually generate the next step, right, in AI progress? So, Adi, let's start with you. First, with introductions. You're leading research incubation at Microsoft. So a lot of what you guys do, based on our conversation in preparation, is about multimodality and reasoning in AI. So can you say a few words about your work and what excites you the most about what you guys are doing and where are we heading?
All right, thank you, Gary. First of all, I just want to say it's great to be in Doha. It's great to be at the Qatar Economic Forum. We're in a really interesting time for AI. So I work in Microsoft Research. I lead research incubations in the Microsoft Research Accelerator team. And my team is tasked with driving ideas to impact across a broad intersection of science, technology, business, and society. And that's a broad range of research that falls within that spectrum. Yeah. So, but I think for the question you asked, Gary, we're in a very pivotal moment for AI, and it's a moment that I call, AI's physics moment. And the reason I call it AI's physics moment is if we look back at the late 1800s, early 1900s, at the age of AI, when we saw Albert Einstein, really bring disruption to Newtonian physics. And we also saw, quantum physicists bring a little bit of, challenge to Einstein's theory of relativity. And a lot of those advances in layered knowledge for physics led to breakthroughs in energy, transportation, in healthcare, in communication. And some of those advances we're still, leveraging today, like GNSS, GPS satellites, our communications networks. So I think AI also is almost in a similar trajectory, where it's not just language, it's not just image, but we're seeing tremendous advances and impact of AI in domains like drug discovery, where we're seeing AI go beyond language and text and images to helping us discover novel, small drug molecules and therapeutics for diseases out there. And there's a broad, that opportunity space is pretty large. It's almost 10 to the 60. So we've seen AI bring remarkable understanding of DNA sequence into understanding the structure, and the structure now enabling us to understand the function of, of DNA. So also materials discovery. We're seeing tremendous advances and impact of AI in materials science, where we could now use AI to explore a pretty vast space, chemical space, almost 10 to the 180, where we could now imagine new battery electrolytes for our EVs or batteries or cars, new chemical compounds, new substrates, new catalysts, new biodegradable materials that could help us really secure this industrial future. And of course, we're seeing a role of AI in numerical weather prediction also. So where we're seeing AI really mirror the language of nature and take this, empirical observations in nature and use it to make predictions for weather and climate, extreme weather events like hurricanes or typhoons, or just to ensure that we're staying ahead of some of the extreme weather events we're seeing. So when I look at all the advances we're seeing here, we have a tremendous body of impact that we feel AI is going to intersect and touch. But what excites me the most is this sort of new era of agentic AI that we're entering. So this is this era where agents, AI agents collaborate with each other. Mm-hmm. They work with each other. You could use enterprise. They could work within enterprise workflows and and stateful applications in a very multimodal way and a very multi-agent way, and orchestrate across your own unique enterprise sort of data. So that part is really exciting. And it's not theoretical. So that part is not theoretical. Today, it's live, it's real. And of course, there are several platforms like Azure AI Foundry at Microsoft where you could really build out this sort of agentic sort of knowledge.
Very good. Excellent. So, Feng, this leads very nicely into your world, right? Because you are leading AI-driven drug discovery at Insilico Medicine. So, and I imagine you have seen firsthand the impact of AI across your R&D cycles. So, can you briefly talk to us about the problem that you are solving? So, for people who don't know what drug discovery is and how does this work, and how is AI transforming that process for you?
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Gary, for asking the question. And it's a great pleasure to be here in Doha. It's my first time, so I'm really impressed by everything, the buildings, the foods, and the lifestyle here. To answer your question, so I can tell you my story. So I was trained as an organic chemist. Then I joined GSK, a big pharma. Globally, doing the traditional drug R&D, right? So I stayed in GSK for more than 11 years. Then I joined a CRO company, still using the traditional way to do drug R&D to help our clients to discover drugs. But I saw there's huge challenges facing the traditional drug R&D. Because we all know that for drug R&D is the most inefficient industry. Pharmaceutical industry is the most inefficient industry. So on average, in order to launch each drug, you need to spend more than 12 to 15 years of the discovery and development. You need to spend more than $2 billion on average to launch one drug. So it's very inefficient. So that's why I joined Insilico Medicine. The reason the pharmaceutical industry is so inefficient is because we use humans' intelligence, right? So our knowledge, our experience, we cannot efficiently and systemically solve three major problems. So the first problem is related to biology, right? So we cannot very efficiently and systemically to find good targets that associate with the disease. So that's the first step, right? So we cannot do it very efficiently. The second step is once you identify a novel target, we cannot, efficiently discover novel drugs with good efficacy and also very, good safety profile to get into the clinic. Mm-hmm. Right? So that's related to chemistry. The third challenge is related to clinical trials. Even though you have good target, good molecule, and then in the clinical trial, we need to design a very good clinical protocol, right? So to find the good patients, the most relevant patients, in order for the drug to be successful. Mm-hmm. So all those three areas, we use human intelligence. We cannot solve it very efficiently and systematically, right? So we can solve it maybe once, right? But you cannot do it all the time. Right? So I think the artificial intelligence might, based on the huge amount of previous data, based on the algorithm, we might provide a breakthrough solution to the traditional drug R&D. Right? So that's why I joined Insilico Medicine. So we want to use data, we want to use algorithm, generative AI to solve problems related to biology, chemistry, and clinical trials.
Wonderful. Yeah. And in our preparatory conversation, you mentioned that you have actually multiple candidates already in clinical trials.
Yes.
Very good. So I have some prepared questions. So the first question which I wanted to ask everyone is coming back to my comments in my introductory presentation. So these models do still have significant limitations. So what I wanted to get everybody's opinion on is what is the most significant capability, technical or cognitive, that today's AI systems still lack? So what is missing? And what breakthroughs do we need to actually close that gap? So Ade, let's start with you. You had several ideas about embodiment and neuromorphic inspirations and all kinds of interesting stuff like that. So
yeah, no, thanks, Gary. So I think the models, we've seen significant advances in the AI models up to this point. Remarkable advances in language and text, comprehension, summarizations, understanding sequence and logic. But there's still some significant areas of opportunity. And there's a few of those. I'll just talk about some of those. I think first is these models do not have persistent memory. So there's still an opportunity to have, some of those models today may demonstrate what seems like persistent memory, and that's a little bit hard-coded. It's deliberately architected, design and the architecture is modeled deliberately that way. But persistent memory, episodic memory, where the models understand interactions at a point in time, or perhaps semantic sort of memory, where they understand the relationships and the context, and using that for recall and retention. So that's still an area of opportunity. I think another is really planning. I think you alluded to that in your talk, Gary. The models have been designed to do a level of reasoning. So we've seen advances in chain of thought, tree of thoughts, multi-step reasoning, where the models are mirroring logical sequence of reasoning. But the ability to plan, to have long sequence planning, long horizon planning, to take that reasoning and demonstrate it in a sequence of long horizon steps is still an area of opportunity. I think also, as we've seen remarkable advances, the models are still largely operating it almost in a one-dimensional world. Multimodality brings a little bit of brings multimodality and 3D, but the models do not understand physical space. So the models do not understand what is almost intuitive to us. We understand intuitive physics, we understand object permanence, we understand gravity. If a cup is on the edge of a table in this room, the folks in this room understand it could drop. So the models do not understand the interactions with a physical space, or an understanding of the physical world. So those are still areas of opportunity, and I think there's I speak about this quite a bit, and I feel there's a lot of inspiration we can get from nature. How the human brain does it, how we as animals or humans do it, how we retain and recall memory, how we reason and plan, and of course, our understanding of the physical world. So there's a lot of inspiration that the sort of AI models we're designing and building could also take some inspiration from that also.
All right. I will come back to that in a second, but first, I wanted to get Dr. Feng's perspective. So from your perspective, what is missing in AI when we think about drug discovery? So for us to make the next, I guess, breakthrough in your world, what is missing?
Yeah, I think for AI in drug discovery, it's a different story comparing to the large language model, right? So for the AI in drug discovery, we really currently lack of good validation, right? So because in the AI, no matter the target you discovered or the molecule you designed by AI, it needs a long time to validate if that target is correct, right? If the molecule is a good molecule, you need to do preclinical studies, you need to do phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. It takes a long time to validate, right? Mm-hmm. It's not like large language model, you can ask a model to do some tests, right, to answer some questions, then you know which one is better, right? But in AI, in drug R&D, we are lack of that mechanism to validate those models. We need to take a long time to validate. So that's, I think that's prevent people to make judgment which models are better, right? So I think that's one. And also, in order to make the models more accurate, we need a large amount of data. I mean the good data, right? So it's the quantity is one thing, but we need the high quality data. But in the drug R&D field, we are lack of the high quality data, especially the patient's data. So if we can have a lot of omics data, for example, genomics, transcriptomics data of the patients, we can make the models much more accurate, right, comparing to now. So I think that's the major hurdle for the AI in drug R&D.
Excellent, thank you. So Ade, coming back to your comments, right? I want to challenge your, borrow from nature hypothesis, right? So, planes do not fly the way birds do, right? So why should we build models that reason the way that human brains do?
Well, okay. So before I answer that question, I want to just support some of the comments that Feng's made about drug discovery. So nature has its own mechanism for fighting diseases. And AI has shown remarkable set of ability in that space. So for example, there's 7,000 genetic diseases in the world. Cancer is one of those. As a matter of fact, a lot of cancers are genetic diseases. And we've seen AI basically mirror and help us understand how nature is working in that space. So for example, there's a gene in the human called the TP53, which basically is called the guardian of the genome. It produces a protein called the P53, and AI is allowing us understand the interactions and mutations of this gene and the protein. So that is, just wanted to share that isn't what nature is teaching us about how it works and how it functions. But I think for some of the areas that I mentioned, Gary, around the opportunities space, if we look at how the brain works, the human brains, if I had to manipulate a Rubik's Cube, for example, or if I had to manipulate my phone, if I hold my phone, I'm using a part of my brain called the parietal lobe that allows me to manipulate this phone, this object in time and space. It allows me to understand the representation of the phone, how I manipulate it, and the interactions with it. That is a dedicated part of the human brain that does that. If I had to walk across this room or walk to go grab a coffee outside of this breakout, I'm tapping into a cortical column in my brain that is called the hippocampus that allows me to navigate through this room and understand how to get out of this room. And that is how the human brain works. There are different parts of the brain that have specialized skills, but the brain has a remarkable ability to give us a spatial reasoning, spatial intelligence, and understanding of the world around us. This is an area of opportunity for the models. As I mentioned before, the models do not understand object permanence. Babies learn this at a really young age. If a 6-month-old baby was feeding and had its feeding bottle, and they dropped it behind a pillow, the baby knows it's behind the pillow, even though the baby cannot perceive the feeding bottle. Our AI models do not have this sort of common sense reasoning. So I think there's a lot of, going back to, I feel there's a lot of inspiration nature could give us.
So you're talking not about mechanical inspiration in terms of architecture, but rather conceptual inspiration in terms of organization of this kind of like multi-agent sort of synthesis, right?
Absolutely. So intelligence in itself is, our first notion of intelligence is how humans do it and how animals do it. There's several intelligent animals.
Yes.
We can go from lower in the scale from the C. elegans. It's a nematode. It's got about 300 neurons. It does have an understanding and some intelligence to survive in the environment that it lives in. And as we go higher to the stack to humans or perhaps orangutans, they do not have. They're closely related in our DNA. And some of you may have seen videos. Orangutans can do woodwork. Some of them could drive. They can speak, but they have intelligence to navigate a lot of things. Our models don't have those abilities. So there is a lot of inspiration in how the human brain works. For example, the duality of thinking and reasoning is also an area of opportunity we could learn from nature. So when I say duality, I mean like systems level thinking. Right. When we think intuitively, that's a systems one type of thinking. It's intuitive, it's right there, we know exactly what to do. It's almost, it's an immediate response. But there's another set of thinking that is more deliberate, more intentional, where we have to reason logically about consequences, about causality, about cause and inference. Yes, so the models also have an opportunity, a huge opportunity in that regard also.
Very good. Yeah, so you echo some of the comments that Jeff Hinton made several years ago about this hierarchical planning and hierarchical memory organization. So I think you're very much aligned there. So we are running out of time, but I do want to ask another important question. So these AI systems are increasingly granted autonomy, right, as to your point, to make decisions in the world independently of human interaction. So, and this can take us into very dangerous, uncharted waters, depending on what you enable the model to do. So, and this is, of course, an area of a massive debate, right? But I wanted to get your guys' opinion on, where do we draw the line between autonomous action and human oversight, especially in domains where, decision-making is critical. So finance, healthcare, law, that sort of thing. So Feng, let's start with you.
Yeah, so for me in the drug R&D area, so we don't have that problem, right? So currently there's no AI can make any decisions. We need the scientists to make all the decisions. The AI only provide some solutions, right? A list of solutions for you, but our scientists need to make the solutions. We hope one day we can have some AI, some super agent, right? So who learned all the drug R&D process, right, already, and help us to make the decisions. And then if that day come, then we can really replace humans to do drug R&D. But for now, we don't have that problem yet. So it's far away from to be the reality. So I think Eddie can.
No, thanks, Feng. No, I think that's a great response. So it's an interesting question, Gary. I think it all depends on the domain, the risk domain, and I think it also depends on the consequences of failure. Some of the industries you mentioned are regulated industries, but I do think every sort of agentic sort of application or perhaps autonomous systems must have some sort of level of guardrails, fail-safe measures, friction in decision loops, and perhaps interventions, human-in-the-loop interventions. So I think it's interesting. Another measure of intelligence is knowing what not to do. When we drive and there's some uncertainty when we drive, we know not to speed or not to. So I think intelligence also starts with intuition. So building these models responsibly in a way where the model knows what not to do or when to invoke a human in the loop, I think it will be critical also.
Right. Following up on this comment, this is a very important point, right? Because a lot of the recent progress, right, in AI had to do with scaling, right? So which has all kinds of issues, right, from environmental impact to technology over concentration, right? Because again, building these models is very expensive. But to your point, right, these kinds of guardrails and engineering model capabilities by design, right, like that cannot come from just scaling alone, right? So this has to come from actually being able to design models for a particular purpose, right? So, which brings me really to the last question, right, because we are almost out of time. So in closing, right, what is the one breakthrough, right? So technical or ethical or social, right, that you believe will define AI's next big leap, right? So, and think of it as if you had a magic wand, right? So, Feng, like if you could wave a magic wand to make AI effective in your world, what would you do?
Yeah, so I think in future, the dream is to use AI to really can do the calculation to imagine, to calculate the function of a human. So because nowadays, because drug R&D, we spend the majority of the money and time in the clinical trials. So if you imagine you can use AI to calculate the response of virtual human beings, the response to a molecule, right? Then we can save a lot of time and for the drug development.
So faithful simulation, basically.
Right, yeah.
Okay. Very good.
I like that. I think for me, one of the greatest impact that we're going to see artificial intelligence have is scientific discovery. And I think myself and Feng have mentioned AI for scientific discovery to discover new molecules, understand proteins, ligand interactions, understand material discovery, materials research, numerical weather prediction, and perhaps even energy interactions. Bring in observable, empirical observations of nature into the models. That's going to be powerful. We're seeing that now. We're going to see more. So what does that mean? It means the laws of nature. Have AI speak the laws of nature. So for sort of scientists in the room, that's understand Schrodinger's equation or Maxwell's laws or Pauli's exclusion, how electrons work, the properties, the guiding surround those electrons. Bring that into empirical observations into AI models. That will be powerful.
Warms my heart as a physicist. So let's thank the panelists. Fascinating discussion. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.